myself, Maura. Good morning. How are you? No Irish this morning now, please.
No, well, I did it to you
Keep
off
that
there already.
It's great to hear that, isn't it? Just somebody saying, I love rugby and this is why I want to take this job. I want to be more hands-on. I want to be at the top. And this is a great and unbelievably exciting job for Ronan O'Gara.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him come back and be involved in the Irish setup or the Munster setup. But I think this is a natural progression for him, taking a head coach role. If he came back to Ireland, worked with Andy Farley, would have been an assistant. If he went to Munster, he would have been assistant again with Johan van Graan. I think his time will come that obviously everyone hopes, and I'm sure he hopes and aspires to come back to Ireland and be involved with one of the provinces or with Ireland. And but I think he's trying to build up his own experience more, and this is an exciting opportunity for him. To take a head coach role, to work with John O'Gibbs. And La Rochelle are a good side. They have a lot of good structures in place, and financially they're pretty sound, and they have the ability to go out and sign players. And it'll be interesting to see how he brings that experience that he's gained so far. The success with Racing, the experience was probably the best club side ever in world rugby in the Crusaders, in what they've achieved and their consistency over the years and their ability to produce so many All Blacks. And to be taken in there and to be welcomed and spoken highly of by those players in New Zealand. So he's achieved a lot. To go again and go to France and not come back is the right call, it's probably the right call for him, and he feels it's very right. And like I said, I would love to have seen him come back. I think he's ready now, but maybe he feels that he wants to extend that experience more. And really, this is the first kind of job he's going to take, that he's going to be head coach. So it'll be a great experience for him and a great opportunity for him. So I think he will come back in a few years, but this is a really exciting move for him.
What is it specifically when you hear about especially the sounds coming out of Racing, in terms of how highly he's thought of in France? What is it about Ronan O'Gara that allowed him to be so highly thought of in that regard?
I just think when I played with Ronan, and any of the guys who played with him from Munster or Ireland or the Lions will tell you that he's very intelligent, the way he reads the game and the way he sees the game. And all top players don't make great coaches either. There's no guarantee that transition is just going to be smooth. It's about how you translate your messages across, and he's a real good ability to capture a room, but also to give in positive messages and good information about the way he sees things, the way they didn't work and the way they should work, and the way opportunities can arise in attack and structure and stuff. So he has just had a good ability to put both parts together. He was an outstanding player, and he has the ability to translate that stuff. And that's the most important thing for coaches, how to get their messages across in any sport. And if players believe in him and you try and win over the confidence of the group you're with, he has a confidence in himself that he's not daunted by standing in a room and challenging people either. So I think that intelligence works for him, and it has worked for him, and I think the experience is just growing over the years. So it never surprised me that he just went straight from playing into coaching and has had success. They love him in France. I think Dan Carter was the one who probably endorsed him to the Crusaders. Yeah. And then, going into an environment like that was always going to be tough, but they've taken him in and accepted him well there.
Well, let's hear more from Ronan. We just want to fix your microphone. He was talking about winning and creating a winning environment.
Yeah, that's something that obviously, what is success, and it looks different for everyone, and I'm not batting it off, but I think what you want to be doing is getting better, and how do you qualify that? Sometimes you need silverware, other times you need to kind of feel it, but that's something that I'd be keen to maintain. You want to be winning things, there's no doubt about that, and that'll be the plan in our show, to win things, because that's what really excites me too. I've kind of done it as a player, I've done it as a coach, so I want to keep that going, and that's what really excites me is winning things, and I enjoy stuff about growing and getting better and all that, but I love winning.
Is he going to win things with La Rochelle?
There's every chance he will. They've been on the top half of the table. They've been in Europe. They've shown that they can compete, and it's a bit of a fortress at home in La Rochelle. So it's a nice place to live as well. It's the money will be good, and that's the reality of life as well. It's so I think he said it himself that the environment, the opportunity, the project, and obviously the financial package is important as well for anyone, for their family. It's the same for players, it's the same for coaches. He went to New Zealand. The financial side of it was way less than what he could have earned if he stayed in France or he came back to UK or to Ireland. So he deserves to get well paid now because he's built up that CV and he takes the reins, and it's exciting. I think if I was a La Rochelle player, I'd be excited by him coming in, and I think that's why they've signed him. John O'Gibbs is director of rugby, so the structures and the support is there over his head, but he can run now what he believes is the rugby program with the first team and put game plans and structures in place for the team to go out and perform, and I think that's it's a brilliant move for him, because if this is successful, there's no guarantee with coaching, and there's no guarantees in France. We know that it can go up, down very, very quickly. If he gets consistency there and he has them, if he wins a trophy with them, they were in the playoffs this year as well, so they're a very, very good side, and there's a good core of a very good group there, and they have some players to recruit over the summer. But if he gets success with them, well, it's the Ronan O'Gara effect will be an incredibly positive one. But I think it's a brilliant move for him and a really exciting one.
It's interesting when you're a coach in that position trying to pick the correct move, because you don't just have to look at the players anymore, you have to look at the structure above you, and I'd say the John O'Gibbs factor here was huge.
Yeah, I think that's probably something he said, that it's swung it for him a bit, because he feels now that and sometimes it can happen in France where you go in and there's a very good side there, and then the president interferes a lot and guys down tools halfway through the season and players get injured and suddenly you don't know what's happening there. I think having the structures and someone to kind of relay, well, John O'Gibbs' job is to really, first and foremost, to try and make sure that he has everything he needs, and that it's up to Ronan then to get the players on board, to win them over as regards the pre-season, the fitness, the way they play, and to get the best out of them. But having that kind of director rugby role there for him will help him and make it easier for him, and he'll know that John O'Gibbs is on his side, that he's the one going to try and make it easier for him and help him as much as he can. That can happen, as I said, in France, where you've presidents and people interfering, and it can go pear-shaped. So it's good that he has that.
Overall, I think this move, it kind of shows the skill set of Ronan O'Gara, or perhaps will show more the skill set of Ronan O'Gara, because you talk about communication there, and as a head coach, going from a more specific role to this will allow that communication skill to thrive.
This is different for him all now. He's the head man, he's not going in and being, and I've seen it with assistants before, where you can be buddy-buddy with them as well, and he's now going to be the head man, he's the one picking the team, dropping guys. He's the one they're going to look to, and if players are not picked, well, they'll turn on him. They could turn on him. It can happen. It can happen with any of the coaches I've worked with. So it's a more pressurised role. He loves being out in the field, so he'll want to be out in the field. So he doesn't have to worry about structures and academies and recruitment, all that kind of stuff behind. He'll have an input into all that, but he doesn't have that. His main focus can be get the team ready, coach them on the field, get his assistant coaches in place who look after forwards, backs, defence, skills, and he can oversee the way they play and be part of that. But like I say, it's a different role, and it shows his ambition. He could have come back and went into an assistant role here. He could have went into an assistant role probably back with Racing as well. He could have, lots of clubs in the UK would want him, and he could slip into an assistant role. There's less pressure there. He's now really, I suppose he came out of the comfort zone by going to Christchurch, going to France first and foremost, but then going to the Crusaders. He's now pushing that on to a different level, where he's now taking control here and having a go at this. So, you've got to applaud his ambition there. There's no guarantees of success, no matter how good you are. There's been a lot of good coaches who've went to France. Look at Michael Cheika when he had the success with Leinster, ends up going to Stade. had to get out of there after a year or two, where it's so if they buy into it and if he can get the players on board and the cultural shift around their mentality, their approach, their training, there's incredible talent in France. So if Ronan can kind of get the group on side and believing in him, well, the sky's the limit with that group, because they have a very, very passionate, great setup there in La Rochelle.
It's the first time you've been in studio with us since Warren Gatland was reconfirmed as Lions coach, 3 tours. We start talking now about squads. We won't get into that, it's a bit far away, but we'll talk about the captaincy options, because Alan Wynne-Jones has been mentioned and Owen Farrell has been mentioned. Are they the 2 front runners in your mind?
Yeah, they are. It's interesting because what Warren said in 2017 that, he was probably done with the whole Lions thing. It was a bit soured a little bit, even though the results, they have the series. But the way things worked out in New Zealand, the way he was portrayed as this clown and in his own country, I think he was a bit soured by it, and he'd been involved in 3 previous tours. He won in Australia as the head coach. He was assistant in 2009. But, the experience he has, and I suppose winning again with Wales in a Grand Slam shows his ability to motivate and get people right and put teams together and winning teams. So that's probably, he's kind of that bug, that Lions bug, as I hate talking about the Lions for obvious reasons for myself personally, because I think back to 2009 in South Africa and all that history, it never goes away, but it's brilliant. I think he's the right man. I wonder, will Joe Schmidt come into the reckoning somewhere, or did he come into the reckoning? Did he rule himself out? I don't know, it's all speculation, but I thought, so Warren may have Joe Schmidt involved, Eddie Jones may be involved, who knows?
I'd say Schmidt has a higher chance than Eddie Jones somehow. Jones doesn't
you
like
never know what's going to happen, but certainly he has that experience, Warren Gatland, and he's a proven success rate with Lions teams and with Wales, so I think I like Warren Gatland, and I'm glad he's back, and I think it's the right thing. Who'll be captain? Well, you can speculate. It's 2 years out, so it's a long way away. There's a lot of stuff going to happen. Alan Wynne-Jones probably now, if it was now. Owen Farrell is probably the front runner for me, because I still think he's quite young, and I still think he's an incredible player. He's an incredible leader. Probably has to watch his discipline as regards the high shots sometimes. But a fantastic player and a real resilient, tough character. He's probably the front runner for me. From an Irish point of view, I just think if James Ryan ends up getting any sort of experience here with the senior team, captaining Joe Schmidt's sides, Joe Schmidt has to find a new captain after the World Cup. If James Ryan fell into that category, and he'd be an obvious candidate, because I think if there was a Lions team picked now, he's a guaranteed starter. His level of performance, his work rate, and his ability is second to none. So Peter O'Mahony is another candidate. He's someone who gained a lot of respect in 2017. He's captained Ireland with distinction as well. So it's a long way off, and people will speculate about it for the next couple of years. But
you look at James Ryan's graph over the last 2 years. Still 2 years to go. I mean, after
it's 2 years to go. Johnny Sexton will be 35. He probably hasn't had the best season individually. He's had injuries, ups and downs, but he's shown glimpses of his brilliance. He's World Player of the Year in 2018. Things can change quickly. He could come back and has the ability to keep going, and he could be someone that could be a candidate as well. But for James Ryan, I think Warren Gatland likes his forwards as captains as well. O'Connell, Wynne-Jones, Warburton, Peter O'Mahony. I think because he's a former forward, he loves having the leader right up close to the referee a lot, been there in a lot of the confrontational stuff, scrums, lineouts. So he'll probably nudge towards a forward who's going to captain the side. But I think, as I said, if James Ryan, playing ability, incredible. He's captained underage teams. He was captain under 20s team in 2016. I just think if he gets any sort of experience and is captains Ireland, he's a great chance of being the captain of the Lions. Maro Itoje is another one, I suppose, who's in that James Ryan performance level bracket. So it'll be interesting to see.
Is that like top priority for Andy Farrell, turning James Ryan into a captain almost immediately?
No, it's not. I think there's. I think in an ideal situation after Rory Best, I think he doesn't have to rush into captaincy straight away. Obviously, someone will have to be picked for Six Nations. That could easily be a Johnny Sexton, Peter O'Mahony figure. They're already there. If he wanted to wait, or do you say, right, this is a 4-year cycle again with World Cups, and that we want to pick someone now who's going to be there for a long time? I don't think you should rush into it for the sake of it, but, you know, Draco was picked as a captain when Woody was kind of finishing up, and, you know, was he ready? He's probably said himself a few times that it was maybe a little bit early, a few months early, maybe a year early or whatever. So it just depends on what James Ryan thinks himself, but he's definitely going to be a candidate to be a captain for Ireland after the World Cup.
Yeah, no question about that. Alan Quinlan, thanks a million for popping into us this morning.